What's up, Endurifiers? This is Mario, and I'm back with another episode of Endurify. And today I want to continue to share what I learned from the most recent Growth Day video on resilience. So if you listened to yesterday's episode titled Hurt and Pain Are the Indicator Lights, Not the Wheel, then you know that Brendon gave a metaphor for how we should be resilient when we face challenges. And he described it as, it's kind of like you're on a road trip, you're driving, you're behind the wheel, and then all of a sudden an indicator light pops up, right? Maybe you're low on gas. Maybe your tire pressure is out. Maybe it's time to get an oil change. And it's really up to us because we are the ones who are behind the wheel. We're the ones who are driving to this end destination, to this vision of a better life. And it's really up to us to how we decide to react to that indicator light. Do we check in with ourselves and, really think about who we are, where we're going, and why it's important to us? Or do we pull off on the, from the side of the road and stop our road trip altogether because of those issues? So that was just one metaphor that he used to talk about resilience. But another one that he talked about is with the title of this episode, which is Monsters Fade with the Light. And he told this really funny story of how, and I'm sure this has happened to you before, where maybe it's dark, it's late at night, you're either by yourself or maybe you're upstairs all by yourself, and you kind of peek into your room or somewhere and you can't really see everything, but all of a sudden you're startled because you see something and you freak out instantly. Maybe it looks like somebody, like an intruder, somebody who's coming to steal your stuff, to kidnap you, kidnap somebody in your family, right? You see their shape of their body, you see their hat, you see they've got a hood on. You see their legs. And he told this story about how he was feeling really good. Then he went upstairs and he peeked into his room and he saw somebody who was coming to kidnap him. So he freaked out. And so what he did is he turned on the light and then he started laughing because it wasn't actually an intruder. It wasn't somebody who was coming, to kidnap him or his wife. It was just a hat. And it was a hood that was on next to the bed or something like that. So much of the time, we make up this idea of the worst case scenario and we do it instantly. And we create these monsters that get in the way of our dreams, of our goals, of whatever it is that we're trying to do. And all he had to do was to turn on the light to deal with that monster. And so that's just a metaphor, again, for how do you become resilient when those monsters creep up in your life. And that was kind of the story that he used to talk about that analogy of monsters fading with the light. And, mental resilience is the light being put onto your problems and challenges. Because I think as endurance athletes, we think a lot about the physical resilience, which is, in the middle of a race, you're dragging. Maybe your nutrition isn't as strong as it was at the beginning. You don't have as much energy. And so you have to physically be resilient and just keep moving your legs, keep pedaling on the bike, keep swimming, keep your stroke count as high as it can be. But what we're talking about here is mental resilience, which is just shedding that light on your problems and challenges. And a lot of times, if you're like me, you make up these stories or these monsters that are way more serious than they actually are in real life if you just take the time to look at it and focus on what is the problem and what can you do about it, and thinking about what is in your control or what is not in your control. And really, it's those feelings that we have about the emotions that come up that determine whether something is a monster or it's nothing at all. And that's something that Brendon talked a lot about. And it's really just that feeling of the emotion, because those are two different things. And another thing that he talked about is the idea of, instead of just being mentally tough, what if we were first emotionally open? So, the coach in me and the football coach in me or the triathlon coach in me, has heard a lot and talked a lot about mental toughness, but I've never really heard it talked about as emotional openness, because that's kind of the first step in being resilient, is being open to the emotions that you have and then, working your way through them and taking that next action and becoming resilient, becoming better in that process. So these are just a couple of thoughts that Brendon had that I wanted to share with you today. And this is where I want to bring it back to you. And I want you to think about, what is something big that you're trying to accomplish this year? Maybe it's a half Ironman. Maybe it's an Ironman. Maybe it's a specific project at work. Maybe it's starting a podcast. Maybe it's starting your business. What is that big project? And what are those monsters that you currently have in your brain right now, in your head? What are those monsters? What are those big kind of scary things that a lot of times are made up? And then what I want you to do is I want you to think about shedding the light on those today or this week. And what I mean by that is really look at them and try and process, what are the emotions or what are the feelings that are popping up that are creating those monsters. And I want you to work through those today, this week, and come out on the other side. Because just like Brendon had in his story, if you just turn the light onto those, you might end up laughing about it because it's so ridiculous, it's so made up, but they're very real. And this is something that I definitely deal with as I've been taking on these different challenges and signing up for ultras and trying to do this podcast every day and trying to be my best at work and trying to launch my own business. So there's all of these different fears of, do I even have the time? Am I capable of doing this? Can I do all of these different things at a high level? And, that monster or the story that I make up about it is that I don't know if I can do it all. Whereas when I really look at it, that's just something that's trying to limit me. And I know that I can have, do, and be everything that I want in this life if I view it through that lens. And that is kind of the challenge that I want you to work through today. So again, what is something big that you're trying to work through, you're trying to take on this year? What are those monsters that are getting in the way? And then shed some light on those as soon as possible to work through them. So that's what I have for you today. I hope that served you, and I hope you all have an amazing day.